All right. As we said, it's a little bit after the hour here, and boy, Joseph, I don't know what to say. This has been exciting 3 or 4 days, starting off with this weekend, and I just it's just amazing on how things are going and how things are. I wouldn't say spiral out of control, but it's definitely out of control on one side. So, I know we talked earlier. You said Ron G. We got a lot to talk about. And I said you're absolutely right on that one. So, but good morning to you in Japan, Joseph.
Yeah, konnichiwa. Good morning to you, to everybody listening. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to get into. So when you say out of control on one side, I want you to unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by out of control on one side in your synopsis of what's going on?
Well, looking at and seeing things on the Republican Party, they still arguing within each other at the convention. They're
Mm,
not as solid as they say they are, because someone go one way, someone go the other, and then you got all this ruckus going on. They even had a shout match at the convention with Mark Gates and Kevin McCartney. They got into it for a little bit, and that's I'm looking at it, I say, you kidding me? And it was live when they did it. So come on now, to me they're out of control because they want too much, but they can't come together on a single issue.
mm, mm. Well, they definitely have come together on their response to the assassination attempt, right?
Yeah.
If we if we want to call it that, um, and I've seen some interesting things on both sides of that, right? I've heard some people saying that it's a conspiracy, that it really wasn't an attempt. I want to deal with that first off, right?
Right.
There were definitely some things that were suspect. The president getting up and wanting his shoe back after somebody, possibly trying to take his life seems a little strange. The Secret Service allowing him to, bob up and, throw his fist up in the air. And I watched that. And, you know, on one hand, it kind of seemed staged, right? That part of it. But the other part is, people died, right? So
Yeah.
I think you got to be careful. I think you have to be careful with the rhetoric, right? Nobody is there that's a ballistic expert, or nobody that I know of that I've heard works for the CIA. So they're not there to investigate if this is an actual, staged attempt. What we do know is people died. So we have to, honor and respect the fact that they are Americans that died out there. A
Yeah.
father died out there, right? Now, I think if you watch this show, uh, we're not the Trump fans, right?
Right.
I don't know about the never Trumpster, but I think we like to consider ourselves realists, or people living in reality, and seeing the dangers of the campaign and what Project 2025 is doing. But I think we have to tread carefully here, because we are Americans, and we don't want to be like other third world countries that feel like we have to take out our political opponents when we disagree with them. Uh, I clearly don't want Trump to be president. I think that's clear. But to say I want an American killed is not something that we should be pushing for. Like Barack Obama said, President Barack Obama said, we should be relieved that nothing happened that day
Right.
in terms of him dying, because you have to. That's kind of the same short-sightedness that we've been blaming the Republican Party for, is just being at the emotion, basing their decisions on fears. Right? Remember we talked about greed, fears, and phobias.
Right.
Uh, it's one thing to have the president lose the election and have the American voice speak and say, we're discrediting you because of legitimate processes. There's another process or another thing about someone becoming a martyr and losing their life, and then their cause becomes even stronger, and their rhetoric, the person that comes behind them, becomes even worse and becomes the Trump 2.0 or 3.0, whatever, because it's added more legitimacy. Once a person becomes a martyr, they add more legitimacy. So I understand the suspicion. I understand, the angst and the frustration and the anger, but we have to rise above that. And we have to rise above that for a couple of reasons. For the fact that it's just the right thing, because we're Americans, and part of our strength is the peaceful transfer of power, which we have to get back to. We have to get back to that. But I have to admit, I remember a comment that Malcolm X said when Kennedy was assassinated. And I remember he said that this is kind of, like chickens coming home to roost. And when he's talking about the evils of the United States, if you go back and know, if you know a little bit about history, know about Malcolm X, why he said that. He was talking about all the evil things and the wrong things that the United States did. And then he went so far as says that he was a country boy. And he said that he was never sad when chickens come home to roost, but that was a good thing when chickens come home to roost, right? So
Right.
I think Malcolm was Malcolm, right? And his experience of white America and America in general and under the Nation of Islam, he had a lot of conditioning to see and say that. But I think we have to understand that there's one part of that we could focus on, and we could focus on the hatred and the pushing of guns and the dancing with violence. It was somewhat of, I couldn't deny the connection of chickens coming home to roost. And then on top of that, it being a Republican that was registered, that got on top of that roof, yes, he was mentally ill. Yes, he had a gun. Yes, I don't know how in the world he got on top of a building that close to the president, and understanding and knowing what the Secret Service usually does when a presidential candidate comes up there. But I think it's ironic that a MAGA NRA gun person would have an attempt like that from a weapon that the Democrats are trying to ban. Right? So, that there is a little bit of the chicken coming home roost situation there. But I'm not saying that I'm happy that happened, because I understand the ramifications of that. We all know, and the people in my circle are like, Lord, please don't let this be an African-American male or Hispanic or Mexican that have done this, because things could be a lot differently today.
Yeah.
Things could be a lot different today, right? And, notice the FBI warning that went out that said that, expect some, or be mindful of retaliatory attacks because of this situation. So I just want us to ground ourselves in reality, remind ourselves that we're Americans. We're not a third world country that has to resort to violence to our opponents, regardless of what the Supreme Court just ruled about, presidents and their ability to be above the law. I think that's going to go down in history as one of the worst decisions that the Supreme Court has ever allowed to have happen. And I think the ethics, that Biden is pushing for Supreme Court justices is, past due. I think that what's going on with Clarence Thomas, the money that he's received, the trips that he was going on as a Supreme Court justice, I think you obviously have to understand that is an ethics violation, because you can't tell me that does not have an effect on your decision-making process when you're taking lavish trips, they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars that are paid for by particular donors. So, you know, we can get into it a little bit, and think it through. I think we now have seen, what happens when rhetoric runs out of control. I think you've seen that we have to be wise about what's going on and be in reality and not be led by greed, fear,
And
or phobia.
phobia. Yes.
Right. And that's we've been saying that for, wow, man, we're gonna be coming up on 2 years here in a minute.
That's
Uh,
right.
but that's what happens, right? And I think that happens on both sides of the aisle. That all this talking about what's going to happen and what can't happen. I think I don't think we've demonized Trump. I think we've correctly reflected on what Trump has done on this channel and what he stands for. There's a difference, and that's another thing I want to deal with. Everybody that said something bad against Trump they're trying to flip the script and make it you're demonizing him and all this other type of stuff. Look, Trump does a good job demonizing himself. All right, you don't have to look at people saying things about Trump in terms of saying he's a bad person. I mean, how many people talk about grabbing a woman's genitalia as a way of saying hello, and having incidents with prostitutes and paying them off while he's running for an election, and then saying that no, he didn't do that. 34 felonies. Look, that's reality. Nobody made that up. That's reality. And the fact that he's seeking office, we can deal with that. Looking at Mein Kampf and looking at the strategy that Hitler used to come into power, read it for yourself. We've asked people to educate themselves, and that's what you're supposed to do as an American, is not just listen to your buddy because you go golfing with them, you go have beers with them, you're going to vote for this guy. No, educate yourself. Is this the man that you want leading the free world? The man that can't even travel the areas where I'm at right now, this beautiful picturesque place called Japan, where we have troops here, he can't even visit them because he has a felony.
Yeah.
What does that say to all people in the justice system that have felonies? What does that say to them? That I can't go get a job. I have all these things stacked against me. But if you're Donald Trump, I can run for president. He can run for president and have the highest office in the world, in the country, even though he's got 34 of the one thing that I have that's destroyed my life. So the rhetoric has to go out the window a little bit, and you have to focus on what actually is going on in reality. As a therapist, that's what we do. That's what most do, is we try to get folks to look at reality and try to get them to live within the constraints of reality. Now, I know there's some metaphysical things that people talk about, well, what is reality? And maybe we're really not here and all that. Look, that conversation is kind of cool for college and the ivory towers of debate and metaphysics. But most of us have to go outside every day. And if it's 100 degrees outside, we got to deal with the heat and drink some water. Because regardless if you believe that it's hot outside and that's a reality, you go outside and you don't drink that water, you're going to pass out.
Exactly.
And so understand reality versus conversations of what if and what should be and what might be. Look, we got to live in what's real and what's right here. And we have a very important decision to make in November. And we can't let situations as tragic as they may present themselves to be to sway and be emotional when it comes down to who's going to lead this country.
Absolutely.
And that's what I have to say on it. That's my response. If anybody got any questions or comments, feel free to call in. Feel free to write in. Feel free to talk about it. We're going to continue to be real. As they say, keep it real here, but we're going to be real intelligent. We're going to be real conscious and real visionaries here in terms of what we need to do to get past this situation and talk about how we can heal and deal with what we're going to inherit after this election. Because right now, I feel like Marvin Gaye should be playing all the time. What's going on?
Yeah.
That's what I see. That's what I feel. So people really need to understand that this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I think if the Republican Party is smart, they'll think about this and go, there's a lot of other crazy people out there. There's a lot more guns out there, and you might want to tone down the rhetoric a little bit on, because don't forget, a lot of different people have guns. A lot of people have mental illness.
Yeah.
And it's hard to catch everybody. You know what I'm saying? So, tone it down, before we this stuff starts going in a different direction. And that's what I don't think that's going to benefit all of us or any of us. I might be in Japan, but I do plan on coming back home at some points. And, I have my brother in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't want to say his name and put him or his family in any situations. Let's say, man, we're going to need to get this cyber truck, this Tesla, so we can drive around. I don't want to have to drive around in the Tesla truck, a bulletproof truck, just to go visit folks and say hi. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I served my time in the military. I noticed, I know that, we have, Stryker Humvees and all that. I don't want to have to drive around in something like that, within our community, or a more sleek, modern version of a Humvee, with the Stryker truck. What do you call it? The Tesla truck. But all jokes aside, man, it's serious.
It is.
It's serious. So we got to deal with that.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, that's what I wanted to say on the situation. We talked about it, and now we can move on to some healthier things. You're looking at one of my other views from my place.
I see.
And it's how I keep grounded, man. You gotta have some places and some things to help you stay here in present, in the present day. So today, this is what I'm looking at. I'm not thinking about what happened with the election process. I'm not thinking about, the ridiculousness of Tim Scott and what's going on with him and what his life is going to be like now that, he didn't get picked for VP. I think he's got a lot to think about. But I don't know if people are learning the lessons of how people churn and get burnt by this process. They use you, you go the way of Herschel Walker. They use you and they throw you aside, right? Because you got to understand, they don't really want you. They don't really want you. So anybody that's thinking about being a Republican or want a high role in the Republican Party, you can ask Michael Steele, you can ask Herschel Walker, now you can ask Tim Scott how that works out.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to be able to ask Clarence Thomas, because I think out of all the justices that they're going to do something with or get rid of first, probably going to be him.
Yeah. So I want to touch base on one thing. The shooter had no background, had nothing, but they did say so many hours before the speech, they were notified of him being, I forget the word they use, but they should have been on him, and they didn't. So the shooter didn't have no background on mental health or nothing, but he was bullied in high school.
Well, we've seen that play out time and time again, right? At Robb Elementary, what was his history, right? He was a misfit. He was, ridiculed. He was teased. He was teased for shooting. As a matter of fact, from what I read, that he was a horrible shot, right? That he didn't even qualify for the rifle team or whatnot. So maybe this is a way of, getting back. I don't know, but these active shooters, always seem to follow a certain particular background. But I do believe, if I read that correctly, that he purchased a lot of ammo.
Yes.
And, so anytime a person, I don't know, this has happened, I don't know how many times, right? I can think of at least 3 or 4 of the active shooting situations where people have gone and bought large amounts of ammo before they did something. So you can kind of see the template. And that's one of the things that mental health is so frustrating, as we see the profile of these people over and over and over again, withdrawn from the school or from the population, kind of a misfit, or, someone who's kind of an outcast, is what they said.
Right.
Somebody bullied, right? These, to me, the parents have to realize, does your child fit that description? Because he got the rifle, and typically when he got that rifle, he would go to the range or whatever they said. But if your child or somebody fits that profile, you maybe need to restrict them from having access to a firearm. And just say, hey, you know what? I know that, you're going to, or at least go with them, make sure that if they're using firearms, that they're using it responsibly.
Yeah.
His dad can say, hey man, look, what are you talking about? You're going to get up on the roof? No, man, we're going to, stop you right now
Yeah.
from doing it. That would have saved his life. So I don't know. We've seen this enough play out. How many times do we have to have a rerun of this same scenario? And again, I have to, talk about this country, Japan, and I got my Starbucks Japan cup. I always, I recommend that people do when you go someplace new, get you a Starbucks cup, or some type of a mental. That's just one of the things I do. But this country doesn't have the issues of active shooters. Why? Because they don't have access to firearms like that. And I know we want to say, well, that's a part of our tradition and this, that, and the other. Well, we need to evaluate our tradition if it's killing our kids.
Exactly.
I mean, I cannot stress how less stress I have living over here, knowing that we can walk out at any time of the night and not have to, and be pretty much anywhere, and not have to worry about a shooting situation. Just imagine that. Imagine if we could do that in the United States. Imagine if we could remove, just in places like Chicago and other places, if we could remove the shootings that happen because we've removed the mechanism that does the shooting, the gun. Now we can debate legally, if you have a right to bear arms and all that type of stuff. Look, if you think a handgun, an AR, a M16, a M4 is going to stop the government from coming to take you or your house away, would you please? I wish you could just hear some of the technology that we got flying around out here and the vehicles that I see driving around out here. If they want to come get you, that gun ain't going to do nothing for you. Period. So you're living in a fantasy if you think your handgun or your rifle is going to stop the government from coming in and taking you up out your house. All right? You are not that bad.
Yeah,
you are not badder than a tactical team. You are not badder than those mobile tanks that I think it was under Bush, that they've allowed the police department to have that can run through your door. And with full tactical gear, folks coming in there, what you gonna do? It's almost like slapping a tank. You're gonna break your arm. What you gonna do?
That's
Shut
right.
up, stop. So if, and I know what they're saying, well, it's just an illusion of power, but the power that you have is irresponsible because it's killing our kids. It's giving people that are unstable way more strength than they need to have when they have a psychotic break. So is this illusion of, protection? Because if you look at it, the Second Amendment, people love to claim it. We talked about that before, right? What is the Second Amendment for? It was for militias to come together to protect themselves from, a police state or for a government takeover. Well, trust me, the same folks that are pushing for these gun laws have allowed the state to become so powerful that guns can't stop them anyway. So we're just putting our kids at risk for nothing. For nothing. For you to put a cool T-shirt on, for you to feel like you could stop the government from doing whatever they want to do anyway. But while you're doing that, the same party is doing Project 2025, which is basically allowing, and not just Project 2025, but allowing the president to actually issue the order that you so-called are scared of.
Yep.
So the president said, you know what? X group here, I think they're a threat. Go kill them. Well, you just gave them a right to be not prosecuted. All right? You then become a political opponent. People are thinking about political opponents as people running against. Political opponents are also people like you and me.
Yeah.
All right? So I don't know, man. I don't know why people aren't reading more into it or watching their rights be stripped away, and they're actually pushing for it. Like, what is wrong with y'all? Do you understand that you are creating what you're scared of? It's almost like you're scared of the boogeyman, but you're going to actually make the boogeyman that you're scared of. You're putting them together. It's like those horror movies where, all this horrible stuff is going on around you. And then right at the end, you walk past the mirror and it's you. You're the person. You're the crazy. You're the nut that's killing everybody. You're the one that's, the monster.
Yeah.
You've been possessed by something, what is it? What is that? Psycho, he was wondering why all this crazy stuff was happening. I wonder why. You're doing it. Now, I know I don't want to compare, or maybe I do want to compare, but a lot of these folks are psycho, Think about it. Does it make sense? Does a correlation ring a bell? Does the comparison ring a bell of psycho and what a large group of people are doing right now in propping Trump up to be the president?
Well, some people are saying we need to look out for the lone wolves. They said there's a lot of them out there. Something's going to trigger them to go out and do something that don't have a background. You won't even know it's them. And they said that's the scariest part right there.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. That's a large segment of what we are concerned about, because this young man, like you said, he didn't have a history of violence. I think the Robb Elementary shooter didn't have a history of violence. He was teased, and he had, he gave signs that he could, he could kill somebody, and he had killed animals and things of that nature, and bragged about it. I mean, I think everybody needs to read the mindset of a psychopath. Needs to read about that. Needs to understand when somebody is somebody. You need to be like, hey, that's that behavior.
Yeah.
Because they kind of follow a certain pattern. You know what kind of happens. Bullying. That's why when I work with the schools, I don't tolerate bullying even a little bit, not even a small amount, because if you address it immediately, I'm talking about cyberbullying or old school bullying in the school, you might be stopping the formation of an active shooter.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things. But these lone wolves, so to speak, the United States right now is a farming ground for them because these
Exactly.
kids, and I've got a preteen myself, and they love to get on these computer devices. They love to get on electronics and kind of focus on that world, and and their social skills go down. So there you got people excluding themselves from society right there. So if you're a parent and your child is on those devices, that's a red flag. That's something you got to work on because you can almost look at the comparison. Kids that are on those devices almost all day, their social skills go down, which puts them in that camp of being, withdrawn. So we've got that. Then that leads to a lot of times depression. So now we've got two of the things that can lead somebody to suicidal or homicidal ideation. Then if they're bullied or not fitting in with everybody,
Yeah.
then you got to look at it like then they become an outcast. And then the Columbine shooters, they had one of the young men who kind of set the precedent for those folks and said, okay, society, you reject me, so I'm going to attack society, so to speak. And that was the shooter up in that lived up in Detroit, in the suburbs, actually. Let me make sure I say that correctly because it was a suburban shooter, not in the city of Detroit. He was the Crumleys.
Right.
When that young man did that, he actually quoted and played music on one of his social media pages from one of the Columbine shooters that went through a similar bullying situation that he did. So there's a precedent. And now you got to be careful what these kids are looking at, listening to, because that information is out there. And if they can't fit in with society, they might find that society of the excluded active shooters that they can kind of get their attention and go down in a blaze of glory.
Boy.
And take all these people out. So we got to understand we're dealing with a problem. We're dealing with a problem that we got to wrap our minds around and go, you know what? That was a romantic notion of having a gun and fight against, the government and if England or whoever came and, wanted to try to take us back over, we're not going to stand for it, all that. Look, sometimes legislation's time has passed and you have to look at the current situation and make decisions on what's going on. Yes, the rest of the world is looking at us like we're crazy. Look at all this beauty out here for you to enjoy. There's a ton of beautiful places in the United States.
Yes.
There's a ton of beautiful, but you can't enjoy them. You go on a vacation, you go somewhere and there's a large crowd. Let's just be real. I'm uncomfortable.
You.
You hear a car backfire. I'm going through tactics to get my family out of harm's way, and it's just a car that didn't backfire. Or 4th of July is a nightmare to me because I got to listen to the pops and make sure. Okay, now was that a gun? Was that a firework? Okay, now that was and me and my wife would be sitting there going, now what did that sound like to you? Like we're ballistics experts, and that sound. Wait, hold on, no, them firecrackers, they went too fast. We might need to come in the house. You know what I'm saying? So.
But you have to start being mindful of stuff. When I was out of town, I was comfortable but not comfortable because I kept on looking around, making sure I didn't see anything out the ordinary, even though that wasn't my neck of the woods. But I was still checking things out. What's that?
I got to repeat back what you said, man, because it just tickled me a little bit. You said when you were out away from your neighborhood. When you're on vacation, you were comfortable, but not comfortable.
Yeah.
So in reality, you weren't comfortable.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I want you to make sure we'll be clear. That was fun. Because I understood exactly what you meant.
But because
you were able to look at this environment and relax, but then again, you can't relax completely. You can't let your guard down completely because something might jump off. Right. I mean, and
exactly.
That's the reality and the nonsense that we allow ourselves to live in, right? You know,
Right.
when you have a society where there's way too many guns and you don't know when somebody's going to, pop off or go crazy or whatever the case may be, you really have to just be mindful. Now, the only place I've ever been able to completely relax right now is here.
Yep.
I don't worry. Now, well, I can't say completely relaxed because I went swimming and I saw an Okinawan sea snake. So that was
Oh.
that was
Oh.
but I knew I wasn't of the complexion of curiosity. So I knew when I saw that I'm going to go the other direction. Matter of fact, he had that whole side of the beach, and I went and looked it up and said, "Yeah, thank God that I did not continue to swim in that direction." Well, my instinct that most of us have or should have said, I don't want to be around that. That don't
Yeah.
look right. You know what I'm saying? So I went on back, and sure enough, I looked it up, and even though they don't typically attack folks, they do have enough venom, or in comparison to a cobra.
Mm.
So I was like, yeah, thank you, instinct and common sense. That said, go the other way. Don't become curious and swim up to it and see what it's going to do. It
Yeah.
might have, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we gotta understand we already have that instinct. And now with all these active shooting situations and all that, for us to really enjoy ourselves and be able to put our guard down, let me tell you why that's so important. Most of us don't go on vacations enough anyway. When you do go on a vacation, be it in the United States or wherever, you need to be able to completely release, relax.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, my resting heart rate has gone down 19 points. It's good for your health. It's good for your psychological well-being. And in that book I showed you last week, I don't know where I got it. I know it's downstairs in my office. It says where the mind goes, the body goes also. There's a lot of links between mental health and your physical health. So if you're
Yeah.
constantly under stress, if you're constantly, as you said, even when you are relaxed, not relaxed, what is that doing to you health-wise?
Not well. I would say not too good because I'm jittery and making sure nothing happens. I'm in that protect mode. When I go anywhere, I'm in that protect mode, and I think a lot of people got so complacent about everything, it just goes over their heads.
Yeah, that protect mode, man, is I'd say very similar to PTSD, and all of us have it. When I'm in the United States, I operate under it. I mean, I do. I'm
Yeah.
in our family group. I'm one of the protectors. If you see Joe and you see a couple of other folks, there's some arms in the building. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We've got,
Yeah.
or there's something that because I've seen it. I've seen how things can go left real quick.
It's for
Shout out
it.
to my sister. She knows who she is.
Yeah.
Uh, we when we in the building, we look at each other like, "You good? You good? Yeah, we got it. We got it."
Yeah.
We got to anybody jump off. It's the wrong table to be around. You know what I'm saying?
But
But you can't really. Let's just be honest. Imagine how much more we can enjoy life if we didn't have to worry about that. And we're not in places where we should have to worry about that.
right.
We're not going to those spots. We look, we too old to go. We just trying to fellowship, sing a little karaoke, have a good time and
Right.
uplift folks in community. But even still, with that, we got to worry about the knuckleheads and the other folks and all
Yeah.
that. So if we could just disarm them, it'd be a little better. You know what I'm saying? Because I've never seen a multiple fatality with knives.
True.
Now, if I had, no, that's not true. I have some people. There have been. I take that back. I have heard of that, but I just always wondered. And there's a comedian that said it best. how do you have a multiple fatality with knives? When you see the first person get stabbed, you should know what to do. You got time. You got time to subdue them or get the heck out the way.
Yeah.
But when you got an active shooter with 30 in the clip, you don't have time to do nothing.
Duck.
And not even that sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey, some of them people tried to duck at the rally, but they still got hit.
See,
So,
I want to say something about protect mode. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. I'm going bowling. So I get out the car, out truck, and I'm with my bowling bag. I'm going out the corner of my eye. I seen this truck making a beeline for this car. And this lady who works there was right there. And I stopped and I turned around and I looked and she knew the guy. She said, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So when we got in the bowling alley, I said, I was looking out for you. You know that, don't you? Yeah, I know. I seen you and thank you. I appreciate that. Tell him don't do that again. He'd get himself hurt by doing that. You didn't know who I was. I thought he was going to hit you with that truck. So that's protect mode. My mind, I'm always, as you say, scanning everywhere. And I like what you said one time when you said if something happens, an active shooter or something, your family know where to meet at if y'all are not together. And that's something we still need to keep on doing is when you go on vacation. Oh, we had a plan when on vacation. Trust me on this one. Something happens, we know where we need to go. But it's a crying shame we have to do that.
It is, Ron. I mean, that's kind of my point. Like, we're living in a war zone mentality and don't know it. We say we're free, but we're imprisoning ourselves to live in a war zone mentality from a threat that we are the enemy. We're the threat. I'm not worried about the government. Well, if certain people get in office and they start enacting policies or continue to enact policies, then maybe I should be worried about the government. But right now, I'm not worried about that more than I'm worried about the active shooters.
Yeah.
The lone wolves, so to speak, that we're talking about. And again, I think it's going to be the community that has to police themselves, the parents that have to be real about what they deal with. There was a mother that I had to commend her, and I wish I could find her name, that turned her own son in because she saw the traits of her son becoming a potential active shooter.
Yeah.
So she turned him in, and I believe her son is probably alive today, and other people are alive today because she said, I see you turning into a lone wolf, we're going to have to be real with what we're dealing with in the United States and changing policies and get somebody in place that's not going to placate the big corporations, the NRA or whatever, because they're going to put money into the coffers. We got to keep from putting people in the coffins.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. And that's going to be the call of our generation. That's going to be the call of our people. Are we going to be smart enough to get people in place that can put intelligent legislation in there, not the ignorant, stupid legislation that allows, weapons to be made into automatic weapons, the bump stocks. I look at these legislation and I'm thinking about how much of an idiot can you be? How much of an idiot can you be?
Pretty much.
You're already an idiot, but how far of an idiot can you be to allow, if we're already having a problem, if the house is already on fire, you're going to switch to water for kerosene and wonder why the house is burning down fast. Well, give them more kerosene, put the fire out. Stop it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then, and we don't all have, and listen, I don't know how many people have been to DC, but we don't have armored vehicles to ride to work in. They do. Your car can't, unless you have, I think there's a certain Mercedes that have bulletproof windows. Unless you're driving around in something that has an armored vehicle, Tesla's about to get a whole bunch of vehicles sold, I swear, because, that's what it looks like that's what's going on. I hate to say it, but just look at the realities. And we were real slow to connect dots in our society. So we got to get there.
Yeah.
You got to get. I don't want to have to prepare myself to come back home. You know what I'm saying? To be
Yeah.
like, let me go back to the armory and get my weapons so I can go to AGB. You know what I'm saying? Let me get stuff together. When I come home, bring my baby, I got to think of the most safe school, not because of who's in the school, but who could start shooting outside the school.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah.
I'm just scared. I'm praying. We haven't had any school shootings. Pray that that's pretty well over with, because that was nauseating. I'm sorry, but I felt sick to my stomach every time I heard about a shooting at
Man, I'm
school.
telling you, one of the reasons I had to get the heck out of the States for a little while, just take a break and get someplace, is I provided some services at an area where there was, that everybody knew about,
Yeah.
that there was an active shooter. And I can't describe the feeling, man. It was one of the hardest jobs I've had as a crisis care responder. Just talking to kids that had witnessed or had family members or siblings in that situation. They were describing what they had to do that day to survive. And it should never be in the United States that we deal with something like that.
No, never.
And
Never should
and,
be
and
that.
it became to the point where I wouldn't say we were numb to it, but we weren't surprised by it. And
Yeah.
that should be enough. I don't understand how legislators that are parents couldn't have been like, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever I can to stop this. I just don't understand that part of the brain, or that part of the psychosis, or that part of society that says I can keep my political career over protecting kids. That's what we got to look at.
Yeah.
Look at those. And if anybody can put their career over protecting kids, you have no place in politics. You have no place in leadership. You need to go back and first get a soul and a mind and connect that before you get into leadership. There is no vision that's worth having that allows children to be killed and think that we're doing anything productive for society. There is no vision. Show me a vision where it's okay for the kids to be killed. And I know I hear the pro-lifers saying, well, yeah, what about pro-life? Are you a doctor? Are you a doctor? Are you someone that can make a decision on a woman's health or that child's health? I mean, that it's a little bit of a different than that and guns and all that. So good old common sense. Where is it? Where is it in politics? Where is it in society? We got to get back to, if it just, there's a way of minding your business, but also protecting the population.
Yes.
My neighborhood had it down pat, man. Auburn Hills and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out to my folks there. Everybody knew everybody. But we knew when it was a time to, let them work out whatever they got going on over there. But if they need something, we were there.
Right.
Kids were outside playing, and one kid started to get ready to slap somebody upside the head. We go, hey, y'all better stop.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me go over there. And everybody had that ability, but if there was something going on, that was not really our business, then we knew how to deal with that. Where did that go? Now everybody's trying to tell everybody what to do, and they don't even know what to do.
And you right about that, because it's just ironic on where we at right now and where we were. And I wish the kids could sit down and talk to some of the elders so they could talk about. I told a kid the other day, I said, what we're going through right now It's almost the
Hmm.
same thing I went through in the 60s growing up. We were fighting for equal rights and are non-violent. And now it's just violent. Everybody settle things with a gun or a knife. There's no more talking about the issue.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to be fighting for civil rights here soon if we don't show up in November.
Yeah.
That seems to be under attack. You know, I think that's something we're gonna have to look at. If you don't, and the old adage is true. If you don't know your history, it has a tendency to repeat itself.
Yep.
So people, I love people saying, take a look at that 2025 and see if that's where we want to go as a country, as a society. But I do remember the silver lining of, if this stuff gets enacted. We talked about this, I think, on the last show. I think it bears repeating. We're going to have to know how to work with each other again. We're going to have to know how to lean on each other in terms of businesses and all that. So I'm not saying that I want that to happen with that necessity because of the necessity. I want that to happen naturally without having to worry about having, limited options and limited freedoms and limited protections. When I say options to defend against racism and civil rights efforts. I mean, my next door neighbor, when I grew up, his name was Mr. Justice Moore. And I used to love that because when you said his name backwards, it was just the coolest thing ever.
More justice.
Yeah, I live next door to More Justice.
There you go.
Shout out to Stephen Moore, who was like my big brother who put all my bikes together when we went off to college. I was like, who's going to put my bikes together now? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And he came to visit me in San Antonio, man. I was like a big kid. I was so proud that he was proud of what I accomplished in life and who I was as a man. Do we even have that now in the society? Did you are proud and have a sense of pride because of who you've become, because of who knew you as a child, because you had that strong sense of community?
Mm-hmm.
He was the first Black engineer that I actually knew, and I was struggling with math back at that time. So I was like, man, how did that? He was like a superstar to me. You know what I'm saying? That,
Yeah.
He's an engineer, wow. I'm struggling with, algebra. He's an engineer, So, it was just because you had that sense of community, and his mother, God bless her, rest in peace, Barbara Moore, who was an excellent educator. My grandmother was an excellent educator. We just had a different value system. We cared about the people that went before us, and we wanted to, live up to their expectation.
Yeah.
Not for them, but for ourselves. I remember when, I don't know if Stephen, if he's listening or going to hear this, but I remember when his dad was mowing the lawn one day and I was mowing the lawn, and we both got to that point where both our lawnmowers were coming together. And I was so impressed with, I'll just say it, man, Mr. Justice Moore, he was like 007 to me. He always had the coolest car, whatever. And I remember he had got a BMW. And at that time, I knew I was going on to get an advanced degree. I thought I was going to go to law school at that point and was getting ready for that. And I was like, Mr. Moore, I don't know why I guess he was taking a break and I decided to take a break. And I said, man, I love that car you got, that BMW. He said, well, you just keep doing what you're doing. One day you'll have one. And I almost teared up one day after I left, after purchasing my BMW, because I was like, wow, Mr. Moore said that.
Yeah.
He spoke that into my life, and I realized I reached that milestone, financially or whatever, that I could afford that type of vehicle. And I had, 2 houses, for everybody that's, talking about, that ain't a milestone to get a BMW. No, it is when you do it right.
Exactly.
And I didn't have to get the newest one. But you don't understand something like that unless you understand something like that. When people tell you they're proud of you, they've known you since you were little and all that, it helps you to deal with some of the nonsense that you have to deal with when people are trying to tear you down. And they don't
Yeah.
know the work and the vision and the blood and the tears and the sweat that somebody has given to give you an opportunity, and why you fight so hard for your opportunities. It's personal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you are working within your gift and cultivate, invested in yourself, and the community has put forward somebody, and you still view yourself as a part of that legacy in that community, even if you're thousands of miles away from it, you still represent that legacy in that community. We've got to get back to that. So that I went a long way around to say we've got to get back to that sense of community where we care about the people that went before us. We care about the sacrifices that are made and the people that have taken the time to kind of show us the way. And maybe that might come out of this mess.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna need each other. We are
Yeah.
gonna need each other.
I remember Morgan Freeman. I remember somebody asked him, "What about Black history?" He turned around and said, "We didn't need it." And they looked at him funny. He said, "Well, let me make it clear. If we taught history the way it should be taught, we wouldn't need Black history. We would not be a footnote in the history book. They would show
Right.
everything that the blacks did."
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
that, and that was so powerful the way he said it.
It was, and it's accurate. But we all know that they're not going to teach Black history the way it needs to be taught because they're trying to conceal it. That's what the critical race theory is all about. They think it's, putting guilt out there. I think telling history as history happened is what history is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I agree with Morgan Freeman on that. But I think he has to be careful because his words can be easily turned against him. And, like when I tell people, yeah, I'm considered African American, like, well, why would you say that? Some people in Africa wouldn't even, what do you know about Africa? What do you know? I said, yeah, that's kind of the point that, our lineage and our history was stripped from us.
Yeah.
And when you don't call yourself African American, you dishonor the ancestors that lost their lives in the Middle Passage. And I refuse to do that. So my history, my bloodline did not start in the United States. Now, I haven't done the genealogy yet to find out where in Africa my people came from, but I think it's important to understand the history so we don't, as I said earlier in the show, repeat it.
Exactly.
Because slavery never stopped, thanks to the
No.
13th Amendment. Just go down to Angola prison and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of prisons in the United States. They just had a study saying that there are people living in these prisons in the same condition that we lived in as slaves.
Haven't changed.
So hasn't changed. Only thing that's changed is the pictures are in color now and not in black and white.
Right.
Even clothing is the exact same.
Yeah. I want to go over somebody, our sister, Veronica Brooks is listening, and these are some of the comments she posted was, yeah, we all need a minimum of 6 vacations a year. And she talked about history, education, removing Black history, removing voters' rights, and
Wow.
remove women's rights. She put that down 1, 2, and 3.
All of that. And shout out to Miss Veronica. Love you. Tell my brother I said hello, Mr. Glenn, Showtime as we call him. It's scary, man. Like, if you think about it, what could be the goal of those things? Rolling the clock back to a time when women had less authority and rights, legislatively and legally, to even control what's going on with their bodies. I can't believe I'm saying that in 2024.
Yeah.
um, I can't believe we got to deal with that. But you know what? And I said this before, and I'll say it again. When I was there, when Barack Obama was inaugurated, me and God bless her, Miss James, we had rode down with a bus of other folks and was there when got to hear Aretha Franklin sing, and I swear our feet were off the. It was like we were off the ground, man. Hearing that, but I felt something when Bush got in that helicopter and flew off. It just felt like something switched, something changed, and it was something instinctive, and it was like by it's a good thing that Barack Obama was president because it ended an era of the perceptions of African American inferiority, but it also slapped in the face hundreds of years of racism that had to like come out of the grave. You're like, you're allowing, the slaves to run the ship.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. That it felt like, we were going to have to deal with something demonic because something that was prayed for happened. So, some people call it the yin and the yang or the whatever, but we had something really great happen. So then all those years, I mean, we read, there are books like Typesetters, and you can read that about how people were trying to scientifically prove that people of color are inferior, but it always got smacked down because, science and history showed that we excelled. I mean, you can look at it, look at, some of the scientific things, the breakthroughs, the heart surgery champions, the brain surgery champions, the authors of civilization were people of color. The reason why we seem to excel in pretty much everything we do is because it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
So when you have such a covert effort to suppress all of that, and then you have somebody like Barack Obama who flawlessly and easily and eloquently shows our leadership ability, then you got to have a rise of a Donald Trump to offset and try to perpetuate an image of inferiority and remind Black folks of the Black jobs you're allowed to have.
Yeah.
So of course Tim Scott was never going to be vice president. Are you serious? Are you serious? So it's just, we have to be mindful, of what's really going on, and the time when I knew what Make America Great Again was about from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I know the password, the code words, the bird, what they call them, the little hidden messages.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I saw a Make America Great Again sign, and it was from one of the most racist guys in our community, old raggedy house, and it had always been that way. Further down outside of the neighborhood, and he gonna put Make America Great Again sign. I said, that resonated with him, and that's a lot of the times the people that it resonate the most with.
Yeah.
So he knew what to say. He knew how to say it, and he knew how to play off that greed, fear, and phobia. He knows his market.
Yep.
Right.
Knows it very well.
That's it. So we gotta understand and show up and show out, and we have to end and put this this old raggedy racism mindset back where it belongs.
Yeah.
And I gotta be careful with that analogy. how I started it, but again, just look at the weight of what I said before. I don't believe in political violence, not in the United States. I don't believe in it at all, but especially in the United States. Look, we don't want to have the issues that other countries are having with taking out our political opponents.
Right. Exactly.
We don't want to go down that path in any way. If we do, that if we think we got problems now,
Oh, we have some
you know,
big problems.
yeah,
Very
that's
big
it.
problems.
So, all right. So, hey, I can't see all the people that are on, man.
No,
How do you do that?
I'm on I got it on 3 different platforms. I'm going back and forth. The main ones everybody's starting to tune into YouTube.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's where I'm at on YouTube.
But I think we need to start doing some fun things, man. Maybe give some things out to folks that are tuning in and all that good stuff. I think it's important, especially going up to November. I think we
Yeah.
need to do some drives and maybe I can get some things over here in Okinawa and get them to people
Okay.
just to kind of share the experience and connect. So I don't know what we're gonna do. It's a lot of things we can get over here in Okinawa, or just do something. Maybe do some giveaways, some gift cards or something.
Yeah.
Because I really appreciate the listeners that we have. I want to challenge everybody to have those discussions. Talk about some of the things we talked about on the show. Me and Ron both have sacrificed time. Trust me, there's a lot of things that could be going on. I would have surgery coming up next week. When is that? The 23rd. So I'm going to probably take about a week or two off. During that time.
Is that when you fly me out there so I could do the surgery myself?
No, no. Now look, I'll let you. Hey, I know you're Black MacGyver, but I don't know about the other stuff. Man.
Hey, I may want to venture out somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to see you have that degree in surgery and you have to go to your clinic or whatever you got before
Okay.
you do this, man. But
All right.
hey, but you know what? Hey, if you were a surgeon, I definitely would. I would definitely consider you.
Okay.
I know how good we are at what we do. So,
Yeah.
but the Japanese, they're phenomenal too, man. You talk about attention to detail, my God. So
Yeah.
it's it is what it is.
Okay.
But just pray for me,
I
and
will.
we'll be moving on along.
Before I let you go, I got to brag about one thing.
Uh-oh.
Veronica said, LOL, Ron the surgeon. All right. Uh, I have a new show. I don't know if you heard it already. It's called Texas in Color.
Yes.
And what I'm doing is have interviews with statewide candidates every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m.
Yes,
And
yes.
I need everybody to tune into that. Also, hit me up on this right here. Subscribe to my channel, WSAN Radio SA, because we're moving and shaking. We're doing some things here that Joseph was the first established show that we had going on. And now from Joseph, I got 4 or 5 other shows that's going on. And thank you for going to 8 o'clock at night, because I got more people want me to do some more evening shows.
Hey, look,
So
I don't mind us being a part of a trailblazing cause. All right. We need to
Yeah.
get information out here. And this is one of the things I could do where I don't charge people a billable rate. We could talk about it and, and kind of get some things out there and talk about
Yeah.
politics. I get to use both of my degrees, right?
There you
And
go.
my passion, talk about things I normally don't talk about in my profession. But, again, we're going to end it the way we always do. The saying is, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. That's going to be very important in November. Your
Yes.
actions need to speak louder than everything you're saying, because if you don't show up and you don't speak at that ballot box, you're really not saying nothing at all.
And on top of that, I'm gonna say, everybody want to know what a black person job is. Vote,
Oh,
vote.
that's right. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
This election, most definitely, your job is to vote.
Amen.
And
Yes.
that's all we can say on that. And I'm out.
All right. You take care, Joseph. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.